Hey everybody, this is Overpass Live. My name's Eric. I make apps. So today I'm totally running late. I was working on a project and I realized, oh my God, the live stream's in like 5 minutes. I need to set up everything. So I know you guys can't see it, but I have these lights and I got the DSLR plugged into it and everything like that. So anyway, so finally we got to the point where, okay, I just barely in time. So I seem a bit frazzled. I'm a bit frazzled. But anyway, so this is the weekly live stream where we talk about whatever we want to talk about. We just have a chat. All of us get together and we just chill. We just hang. We just, chill, hang. That's it. That's all I got. I have no other adjectives for just hanging out. But so anyway, so that's what we do. This week for me has been a very busy week in terms of client projects and doing stuff. I think I told you guys how I've just been working on this one project that I'm just really enjoying working on, and there's a few other projects that I'm working on too. And I'm trying to clear the board. I'm trying to get stuff done so I can focus on my own applications. Week in and week out, you guys say, Eric, you need to get back onto your own apps, and I totally agree with you guys. So I'm trying to clear some of that stuff off the board. So I hope you guys can hear me, okay? So anyway. That's been this week. And the big thing here, I guess, is in England, lockdown ended. We had a 1-month lockdown, and that ended. But this was the second lockdown has been weird because it hasn't really felt that much like a lockdown. And when we came out of it, pretty much the entire country's on tier 2, which means the pubs are still closed unless you order food. It's like a whole bunch of weird rules. But anyway, it's great to see you guys all. Let's see who's here. Let's see. Fist007. Yo, what's up? What's up, Fist007? I missed a live stream for a couple of weeks, and I kind of feel bad about it. Don't feel bad about it. Anyway, how was my week? My week was good. It was good, and it was just sort of productive. It was busy. How's the business doing? It's doing okay. It's much slower than it was before, and that's on purpose. We've been trying to not take on so many client projects, or if we do take on client projects, what we're trying to do is get to the point where if something comes in, either refer it to somebody else, and they insist on working with me, then it's gonna have to be it's whether or not we actually charge enough for it. But yeah, so it's been okay. There's loads of opportunities out there, but we always have the slowdown going up to Christmas. It's funny because going up to Christmas, the ad mob revenue goes up. Although for me, it's still £10 a day, something like that. So it's really low. So the ad mob revenue goes up because of the advertising and everything like that. And client work goes down because everybody's kind of winding down before Christmas. So and more importantly, how's the vaccine looking? From what, I'm not really an insider on this, Fist007. I know you think, I have a lot of gravitas and they run these things by me, but no, I don't know. I think it's going well. I have no idea when the vaccine will come around. But I hear that the UK will start vaccinating people starting next week. Yeah, but there's there's 55 million people in this country, which is I know it's coming from the States. I suppose it's smaller, but it's still it's going to be the first line workers obviously first, and then the elderly, or maybe the elderly. They're the ones that are going to need it the most. So I don't know when they'll actually call and say, come down. Happy Friday, app gangsters. Happy Friday, Bart. Thanks so much for your emails again. I'm really this is what I'm clearing the decks. I'm trying to make sure that I did this video at the start of this year saying 2020 is going to be my year. That's it. No more passiveness. I'm just going to hit everything full on. And then it was I don't know, some weird things happened this year, which, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but this year's a weird year. Sorry, Bart. Apple 15% program has started and is due by the 18th of this month. I think then it might adjust the January payment, so that's great news. Yeah, especially for you, Bart. You got loads of revenue coming in from that. Hide your belt. Yeah, this is an old belt, and that the loop that the thing goes into, that just sort of fell apart and fell off. And I thought it's probably okay. I've just puck it in the other thing, but it comes off and it just hangs down there like a rude object. But thanks, it distracts me. Jitendra, hey, how's it going? It's good to see you. Phil J said, Dude, it's been too long. Hope you've been good. I've been good. Yeah. It's I got a video done yesterday and I tried to do so yesterday I just I need to get more on this kind of stuff. It's and the videos aren't as important as actually my own projects and my own stuff getting it out there. So it's really kind of I've been doing a lot of work with Flutter and Xamarin, and my next project is going to be it's probably going to be either me coding it or I'm going to get like a dedicated developer. Like no more offshoring for this next one because I just end up cleaning everything up, right? I end up getting everything and it's like, well, it works, but it's like, I'm not quite sure if I like it. So like the next project I do is either going to be myself coding on it, which I mean, it's probably not a good idea because once I get stuck into that, then everything else falls apart. So it's either like getting a good developer that I can work with more closely because I've had developers that I've worked with closely before, and that way it works a lot better, especially if their internet is good and you have like the daily Scrum meetings and stuff like that. If you can't have that and you're doing everything over chat, it does get a little bit difficult. But yes. Market Corrupt Potty says, Eric, you are the best. Thank you very much. Miss Wajid, hey, how's it going? Dude, nice suit on your avatar. I love it. Let's see. Where were you, Eric? Where was I? Did we have a meeting? Did we have a meeting I didn't show up for? Let's see. Miss Wajid said, does Google refund the money in internal testing an app for in-app purchase? Yeah, so what you need to do is you need to go into Google Play Console and you set yourself up as a test user. Now, it used to be you still had to put in like credit card information, but they don't charge you, which is kind of like, but yeah, you have like certain test users that you go into the Google Play Console and add them for in-app purchase testing. For me, I don't do that very often. I mean, I'll do it like, towards the end, but like I always like have a, you have like your button that says, whatever, your buy button. And then I just mock it up. So like if I'm on a simulator or whatever, it just bypasses all that altogether because it's a hassle otherwise. So just making sure that you turn it off and then you clear the sandbox or whatever to go back to the way it was, do it again, clear the sandbox, test it to make sure all that stuff works. And then at the point where I actually do make that purchase, then I tend to like mock it all up to that point. And then only do like the minor bit of testing because in-app purchase testing is just a pain in the ass to test. It's like because you're dealing with the other systems and everything like that, and it's one of those. Every so often, like you'll have things that are quick to test, like something that you could test in the simulator or the emulator. It's like perfect. Like I'm moving something 2 pixels over here. Let's see what it looks like on another screen, whatever. And it's when you run it on a physical device. Which is you start to notice that there's certain other problems, like maybe like on iOS you have trouble with crashing. Like if you're loading an image that's too big, the simulator or too big or whatever, you get memory issues. Most of the time it's memory issues with me. So it'll crash a device, but it won't crash the simulator because you got all that power behind it, right? So, but testing on a device and compiling and going to the device is just that's time consuming. So I've had lots of projects where it's like Bluetooth connection and it's like it's getting a bit easier now because especially like with stuff like Flutter and Xamarin and Hot Reload, you have everything plugged in, you can set your breakpoints, everything like that. But when I was doing like Ionic development, it was like loading everything onto a device, attaching to that device, and then going into the console or going into the developer console and doing remote devices, find that device, find the line of code, whatever, and then you find your breakpoint, and then you go, okay, that's what it is, and then you have to go through that whole process again. So anyway, I hate doing things which slow down the development process, and for me, in-app purchases is definitely one of those things. But going off on a tangent. Victor says, do you make desktop applications? No, I've never really. I have done so on the Mac App Store. I did release a bunch of my bubble bath games on there just because it was easy to do with Corona. Like all I had to do was make a few changes and then I could distribute it there. But this led to the 4.3 issues. I think it was because for every game I had, for every one of these language games I had, and a lot of them were reskinned and, and minor tweaks. It wasn't just reskinning, but it was like minor tweaks in different languages and stuff like that. But I would have the free version with in-app purchases. I would have the paid version, and I would have the Mac version. So like for every single one of those, I would have 3 different apps or whatever. So my App Store account got huge, and I don't know if that contributed to the 4.3 or whatever. I think it probably flagged them up. But no, I've never, like, even, it's funny how, like, I prefer to use desktop applications still, like on a computer, obviously. But, the web application is just so much easier. Like, but I don't know. But no, the answer is no, I don't. I used to back in the Visual Basic days. Lazy Inventor, hey, how's it going? Lazy Inventor, Timil, hey, how's it going? Let's see. Zero Supremacy. Hello. Happy Friday. Happy Friday. Let's see. Eric, give me some SaaS application business ideas. Okay, let's do that. Let's do that as an exercise, right? If I knew the best idea to go for, then it would be easy. But let's take a look at any industry. Let's take a look at. I always go to plumbing. I always think that plumbing would be a good SaaS application. We did do a SaaS application for a plumbing related company, and the good thing is that the person doing it knew about the industry completely, right? He was just like, he knew how all these calculations and stuff like that. I mean, it was really complicated the way that it worked, but but I've always think like, it's interesting when you see somebody come in and they build more like the framework around something. So you have all these private contractors out there everywhere, and then somebody comes in and brings in like almost like a directory, but it's like they simplify the payment processes. So like every time I do call a plumber, like I call some central line, some central phone number, and what they do is they'll send out somebody who's loosely affiliated with that person, right? So I always thought it would be good to have something where you could serve an industry that way, where like almost like a directory where everybody could go through, and rather than me have to get into the phone book and call around and whatever, find a perfect plumber, that I would be able to go into this application and it would just direct me to the nearest one, and the plumbers are the ones who would pay for that. And there's loads of applications like that. But this is the kind of thing where I think like a lot of industries could use it, whatever it be, babysitters or hairdressers, and there might already be that kind of stuff out there. But whenever I go back to like SaaS applications is what I think of, unless we think of something that's like genuinely industry specific, and then you have to think about the industry. All I know is technology. So when I start thinking about SaaS applications or apps, I start thinking, look, we could do like an ASO application. It's like we could do like a like a client bidding application, like all that kind of stuff. So, but it's really like taking it, like you just need to look to see what's missing out there and how you can serve a population. And I think, and it's weird because I always think whether or not I could just go into an industry I know nothing about and learn about it and then do something in that industry, or should I stick with what I know? But I don't know. If I knew the answer, but if anybody else have any good SaaS application ideas out there, Billy, what's up, Billy? How's it going? Sil Riff says, Eric, what kind of things do you generally use Firebase? So I use Firebase for authentication. Well, I use it for push notifications, obviously, because you kind of have to now for Android, right? So I think what I think is cool about Firebase? It's not cool. It's kind of weird. Like you could be using Azure app services, and you could be using for whatever on the Microsoft stack, or you could be using AWS, or you could be using whatever. You could be using whatever technology, and you could use MongoDB as a backend with a Node.js, right? But you still have to use Firebase Cloud Messaging to send push notifications, right? So if you're going to be using that anyway, why would you use any other analytic service? Why would you use any other database service? Why would you use any other authentication provider, right? Which is kind of monopolistic, the way that they kind of put it through there. And there are reasons to do it. Like I told you guys before how I will store images on so I'll be using Firebase and I'll store the images on AWS S3 bucket just because it's cheaper. It serves them up cheaper and everything like that. So, but yeah, I use Firestore. So we did have to use real-time database to begin with, but I really like Firestore. I'm really gotten to the point where I like it used to bother me that that you would have an application that would connect straight to the database. So like if you're coding a Flutter or Xamarin, whatever native application, and you're authenticating and then you're writing directly to the table objects, then it removes that layer of that the data access layer almost, where for me it's always cleaner to have like an API with the functions. That way if I wanted to replace the database with MySQL or SQL Server or Mongo, right, I could do that because the application wouldn't have to change. However, having used Firestore directly from the application, I'm starting to rethink all that because it does make it a lot easier. What I have found difficult doing is when I have to make call an HTTPS callable function from within an application and get the response back, for which for some reason I could do really well in iOS, but I was having trouble doing that in Android. So like I wanted to be able to call a cloud function to send a push notification to another user, right? So and in the end it was like I was having trouble doing that, so I just created a trigger on a Firestore table, and which was better in the end because it gave me an audit record of everything that was going in. So if I sent this person push notification, push notification, push notification, I had this collection of push notifications that I could say, okay, you were sent it at this time, this time, this time, this is what they said, everything like that. But like there's different ways of working in it, and for sometimes it just gets in my head, but I use it for a lot of things. Eric Wroolie. I love it. Ad mom needs a payout for FAPs. For FAPs, do they? Well, yeah, it's, I suppose so. Thanks, Derek. All right, that's my favorite one so far. Aiden Mac, hey, good to see you. Good to see you too. Hey, nice avatar. Oh, by the way, if you haven't given a thumbs up for Eric Wroolie, come on, that's awesome. And thanks for all the thumbs up, guys. Let's see, Phil J said, I missed too many weeks of Eric. Lots going on my family and Turkey Day. I know, we did the live stream last week, and it was Black Friday. But yeah, I had that was my Saturday last week. We had turkey. I was going to do it on, every year I think I'll do it on Thursday. And it's difficult with the kids in school. They get out of, I don't know, one that's even living close at school now, but have him come over around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, eat really quickly, and then go. Well, I spent the whole day cooking and then spent the whole evening cleaning, so it's better to do it on a Saturday. But Kotlin or Java? Kotlin. No, Java. No, Kotlin. I think Kotlin is a new thing, but for me it's Java. But I think it's is Kotlin better? Is Kotlin better than Java? I think they both perform the same task. I mean, it's probably. I mean, it's newer, so it's got to be more current. I think the thing that put me off Kotlin to begin with, like with Java, there were so many things like Java server pages, like the portability of the language. You can use it everywhere else, but I think if you're going to just do Android development, then Kotlin kind of makes sense. But it goes back to this. I can remember back in the ASP, when I was doing ASP, classic ASP, and somebody was like, no, PHP is better. No, PHP would kick ASP's ass. In a fight between Java and Kotlin, I don't know. You've got the experienced Java, right? And he's got street smarts Java because he's been around a little bit, but Kotlin, he's young and scrappy or whatever. So it's, your end user will not notice a difference, right? Your end user will it's really what you feel comfortable with. Let's see. Derek says, Kotlin or Java, that's never been asked ever on the internet. I know we get asked that like every week. Why not? That's a Jitendra. Gregor, hey, how's it going? Hey, Eric, watching you live after 2 months. Woo, jeez. Welcome back. Can you tell me if you use material design guidelines? I tried it with one of my apps, and it really looks more professional. I use it, but I don't actually go through the guidelines. I know it says I should. I like the look of material design too, but like I don't go like. I've always been like I like the way that I like the way things look, and I know that sometimes when they come up with like I remember when Windows when I remember going like the design guidelines for Windows applications, and they made a lot of sense, like when to use a radio button as opposed to a checkbox. By the way, don't you just hate it when somebody uses a checkbox when they should be using a radio button, or they use a select for something where they only have like a yes, no. I hate when somebody uses a drop down for yes and no, right? It gets on me, right? You don't need yes, drop down for that. You need radio buttons or checkbox. Checkbox is even better. It's Boolean, right? But I understand yes, no, or none, right? And I hate, I've never gotten used to that three-phase check, like checked, unchecked, or that little line kind of like, yeah, maybe a little bit checked. But so that stuff makes sense. But I do, but like when people would talk about when you design an iOS app, it should look like an iOS app. When you design an Android app, it should look like an Android app, right? And the only people I've ever seen who were really sticklers for that were, Android developers, iOS developers, and Apple and Google. Because I think for most of the users that I've ever had, they don't really care, right? If you have material design looking application in an iOS app, that doesn't really make any difference to them. So, but I've looked at the guidelines. I don't think I've read them fully though. I wish I could say yes. What do you think about PWAs versus native apps? Who would win in a fight? PWAs versus native apps. It depends on the home turf, right? If it's on Android, if it's on an Android device, I don't know, it'd be a pretty fair fight. If it's on an iOS, I don't know. I think natives would have the upper hand. But all right, what else can we put against each other? So we got PWAs versus native. Let's do chocolate versus vanilla. No, let's do SQL Server versus MySQL. Who would win? NoSQL versus SQL. Which one is better? Ada Max says, thanks for the thumbs up, everybody. Ada Max says, I've been setting up my CI/CD for a Flutter project on Google API access on the Play console is throwing an error. Has anyone had this problem? It's been a month. Google knows, but it's taking ages. No. Wow, how are you doing that? Are you using like Fastlane? Fistello07 says, I'm dealing with browser index DB. It's cool to finally be able to store large data within client hard drive. The only limitation is that you find you need to access it through the browser. So what store within Chrome won't be accessible from Firefox even on the same computer? Sad. Sad. Yeah, I mean, I was using IndexedDB, and actually, I was using IndexedDB for my Flutter projects. Not my Flutter projects, my Ionic projects. I was using but it was kind of cool because you could use IndexedDB in the browser itself, but when you actually deploy to like you just put like a little if condition, like if Cordova.device is not equal to null, then use IndexedDB, and then that way you can use the same SQL for all of them. Right, so you can still test in the browser, and then it's actually stored on the SQL server on a SQLite database on the device itself. Because like early on when I started doing browser-based Ionic stuff, I was doing everything using local storage, just using browser local storage. And of course, when the device started to run low on memory, it would just, especially on iOS, it was clearing the local storage. So having it in SQL Server or SQLite made more sense. But Jitendra says, so as an app developer, what should you learn besides Android and Firebase to increase your skill set? There's loads you can learn. It depends on what kind of stuff you want to do. If you're developing your own stuff or you're going out to get a job. If you're going to get a job, then there's lots of other stuff that you can learn. But I think, to me, this is something that I think something that's helped me a lot is just learning basic graphic packages, right? Like knowing how to use, not going into crazy with Photoshop or anything like that, or Illustrator or whatever, but just being able to know how to properly crop, create shapes, stuff like that, just so like you could have those graphic assets and everything like that too. It's kind of weird, and that's not a core skill like as a developer, because you could always get a designer. But if you knew a little bit of design too, then it would really make your life easier. I think in Android and Firebase. In Android, you'd only be an Android developer. You put something out on the Android store, but you could do a full app with Android and Firebase. Right? I can't think of anything else you need. Firestore, which is part of Firebase. But yeah, I think you could, and then you'd have to know. Yeah. A good thing with using some like basic graphics packages, even using like Canva to do screenshots, I think that would be really important. Matthew says, I'm back to $1 to $2 a day. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. P.S. I hate chili dogs. Oh man, sorry about that. Dude, I love chili dogs. God. But yeah, I'm sorry to hear about that, Matthew. Is that because of the news app? You said the other day that you had to remove the news app because of that thing. Bizwoji says, in-app purchase took 2 weeks to set up and work using YouTube tutorials. I know, it's weird. It's like some things are just not addressed enough in like books, and I think in-app purchases and deployment are the two things that I think are they probably because they change so often. Sunit, hey, how's it going? Says, how's the iOS development with Ruby on Rails motion like? I've never used it. In fact, I haven't used Ruby on Rails since like 2008 when it came out, and I was like testing it out. So I don't know. Does anybody else know? But yeah, sorry about that, Sunit. I've never actually used it. Carol, hey, how's it going? I'm glad you can make it. Let's see. MD says, Eric, I just found that you can have an iOS instant on AWS ES2. Maybe we can use that for iOS development instead of investing in an expensive MacBook. What do you think? Oh, can you? Is it an iOS instant? Because you need like the Mac OS to actually do the development and the compilation. The iOS would be the product of that compilation. But is that what it is? I haven't looked into that. I see Morris Taylor says, is there iOS freelance work for beginners? Well, yeah, freelance work is freelance work. Freelance work is like whatever you can get. Like if you had somebody, I think you could. What's a beginner, right? As a beginner, like I have no idea what iOS is. I don't know how to use Xcode. I don't know how to open it. Or is it somebody like I could do basic things? I know my way around the IDE. I know a little bit about like I could do, tinker with stuff here and there, because that's a skill, right? You wouldn't be able to charge a lot for it, but like here's a perfect example, right? When I first had my applications, EarSpy on iOS, like a lot of the ASO guys was like, you change your keywords all the time. So like we're talking to like a bunch of friends, and I didn't know iOS at the time. So for me, it was like I just needed to package it and release it, right? And I didn't have a Mac, so I couldn't really do that. And when I did get a Mac, it still confused me. It still doesn't make any sense that you would go up to the whatever product and archive. Is it product archive or build an archive? So you go up to the archive and then you archive it, because it seemed like publish would make more sense than archive. But anyway. That's it. So just knowing some basic things how to do it, like swap out some images, do a little bit of reskinning, maybe change some, add values or whatever. But everybody starts off as a beginner. The only thing is whether or not you can convince somebody that you could do the work that they need, right? If somebody comes to you and they say they need to overhaul their entire application, then maybe you might not want to take on that project. But if they come through and say, I'm looking for somebody to change my icon and deploy it, right? Or I want to try a new icon and I have no idea what to do. I need somebody with a Mac. So that could be, I mean, there are, it's just, the hard bit will be like getting that work, but it wouldn't pay a lot. So, and if you could get a job or even a bit of freelance work where you get somebody to pay you to do the work, then what I would say is you could charge your client for the entire time of you learning it, but I think it would be more, you would charge them based on the work that you do, but you would get better as you go through. So, you don't want to like do that. So, Fist7, Kotlin is more modern than Java, that's for sure, but you can be certain things are more efficient in Java than in Kotlin, and some other things will be done more efficiently in Kotlin than in Java. The intermediate state of the checkboxes for when you have a group of checkboxes governed by one checkbox. When not all checkboxes are not selected, the master checkbox is in the intermediate state. I know, but it's just yeah, you're right. Unity is Unity versus Android Studio. Unity, oh, good one. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, Unity versus Android Studio. We're going apples and oranges now. Only for Android phones. Oh, Unity versus Android Studio. I've never used Unity, but thanks for explaining further. I see. Okay, so disadvantage in future. I used to make fun of JavaScript 10 years ago. I used to make. Well, you know what? JavaScript used to. Well, yeah, JavaScript. JavaScript went from being that thing you had to know, right? And it was like, I remember back in the late 90s reading the JavaScript Bible, this huge book, and I just like, it was like, I would read like everything back then. I read this book, so I learned how to create arrays and do all this, like lots of stuff you could do, but most people just knew how to do, if text box 1 is empty, then alert, right? That's what most people did. And so when JavaScript, the good parts came out, well, it was even before that, like a lot of people really got into it, and Node.js was like, you could do it on the server, and then a lot of people doing, and things got a lot more complicated using Ajax and everything like that. It like JavaScript became really, really cool, and it became a lot more mainstream, right? And so JavaScript went from being the necessary thing, which not a lot of people liked it, right? And then it went, and even like VBScript tried to compete with it on Internet Explorer, so you could do VBScript in a browser, which I've worked on projects 10 years later where you have people stuck on IE6 because it's a framework that has client-side JavaScript. And then it got really cool, and now it seems like it's kind of, I don't know if it's kind of trailing off a little bit, but Sanam Shrethra says, what's your future goal? This is a good question. I've been thinking about this a lot, especially over the last year. My goal used to be, I want Overpass to be a big company, and I want to grow it up to be this big agency, and then like just the stress of when I did bring on some people, it got more stressful. Bringing on more client projects got more stressful, and I started to really change the way I started thinking about that. And then for a while, I was like getting depressed because I was thinking, I don't know what my goal for the future actually is anymore, right? That was a thing I was always going to do, and now I'm like, and I kind of have this, I'm talking about the vision boards. I had my vision board. I had my things, and you know what I really want to do now is I want to get to the position where I could just work from anywhere. I want to be like Cord Funk. I want to be a digital nomad, right? I want to be able to, where I can just pick up and go someplace and work from there, and kind of become like, that's sort of that lifestyle I would like to try for at least a few years. But let's see. But that's my goal at the moment. Derek Dooley says lots and lots of chili dogs. Damn right. Yeah. You know what I love about chili dogs is like they look the same going in as when they're going out. Chanel says, "Hey Eric, how do you see the app market now? Is it possible to make a living only on your own apps?" There was a good question that came in on the last video from Ravi, who said who was asking about this. Like, I think it's possible to make it, to live making your own apps, but I don't think it's going to be that riches. And I think, like, 5-6 years ago, all these people saying, get rich making apps and everything like that. But I do, which I don't, I suppose it is possible, but and it got so Ravi asked me this question, Ravi Sharma, and I want to make the next video about it because I've been thinking about this a lot. Like, a lot of the big applications that make a lot of money, they're not just easy, low barriers to entry thing. Like, even if you have something like EarSpy, my application that did really well until it got removed, it was an easy thing. It was like a really easy idea. It was easy to implement. It didn't rely on server infrastructure. It didn't rely on a community, like a network of people coming in. So like a social network, or a lot of the, like Uber and a lot of stuff where you need to have buyers and sellers all coming in together. It was just an easy application, right? The problem is that the barrier to entry was really low, and anybody could just see that and go, I'm going to do that too. Like, they just copy it, right? So, which they did again and again and again, right? And so, it's something I started thinking about. And the ones that are not easily, like, I'm sure, like, a lot of you guys out there, if you look at something like Facebook, you think, I could do a Facebook. I could create like an app like Facebook. Like, maybe it might not be as scalable or whatever, but I could basically do something where it's like it does everything the same thing. But that's not where the value of Facebook comes. It's not the technology. It's the network. It's the people. It's like, if you were going to create a competitor to like any of these big things that are just too big to fail, you would have a difficult time doing it. All right. So I think this is something I've been thinking about for what the next application would be. Should it be more network driven? Should it be more, building the audience and the brand around it to the point where that becomes the thing that becomes where the value comes from? Because somebody can create a competing product or copy it exactly, right? But they're not going to get the same audience unless they're able to somewhere, take them away from one and go to the other. But the network is what makes it strong. So I've been thinking about that a lot lately. But yeah, I definitely think it's easy. It's possible to make a living doing your own apps. And there's a lot of people on this channel who do, and I'm not one of them at the moment, but I was. But it's, it definitely is possible. Derek Dooley, I had a dog named Dooley once. Jim Belushi in the movie K-9 his name was Officer Dooley, I think. Fist up, I see the irony of what you're saying, Eric. I really do. But to shed a bit of light, SQL has this usage and NoSQL has this usage. You can't try to shove SQL into everything you're trying to build. It doesn't make sense. A plumber won't use a wrench for everything. Each plumber has its own tool. No, I totally agree with that. When I talk about it, SQL versus NoSQL, I was joking because it is a case of doing it. So for me, my preference is to use SQL-based applications, unless it depends on the data model. So like if I have something where I know I'm going to need to run loads of reports on it, and it's kind of tabular in nature, and the structure of the data doesn't change that often, I prefer going to a SQL-based database because I love just being able to go in, going into MySQL Workbench or SQL Server Management Studio, whatever, writing a query and being able to find out what the situation is without having to write all kinds of loops and everything like that, and to know the structure of the data just in order to do that. But if you have something like a chat application or an application where people are able to add their own fields and the data is much more malleable, then a NoSQL database works better in that way. Or even one where you want to have that security based on the node itself. So like there's no reason to look at all of the data in one go. You want to like for the Firestore, one of the things I like about it is I can set the authentication to be like a user can only edit his own record, right? And unless they're an admin user, then they could go through and do it. So you have that rule in the Firestore rules that you say, like, if it's an admin, then you can make the change. Otherwise, if it's that person, then you can make the change. But yeah, they're definitely different ones. Yes, I'm using Fastlane for CI, but I've not even got that far, as you need to have the API set up first. iOS is already working. Hope you're embarrassed, Google. See, what kind of apps give good user retention and less install rate? User retention is a big issue, especially on the Android side. But so I have not cracked that one. Like my user retention, I did a video about it a few years ago. It's still pretty low, right? It's I would imagine to be the kind of thing where people were compelled to check it every day, right? If you had like a news application or a like a social application where people would go in and was able to send notifications off, right? Then that would be the kind of thing that would use it. If you had something like it was a currency calculator, then they might keep it so they would still have it installed, but they might not check it every day unless they need to. COVID versus Black Death. Yes, Star Wars versus Star Trek. What's your approach on asking a user to rate the app within the app itself? Any tips? So I did a video on this before, but like we tried the normal app. What was it? The the pop-ups. I'm thinking App Center. With the pops saying, "Hey, do you like the app?" Then rate it or whatever. And then you got the new ones now. The Google review API, so that you can actually, it'll handle like when to do it. Like you just call it and it won't keep doing it to get people to use it. So that's going to make things a lot easier. But for us, we did something where we came up with like a cartoon character with a little girl saying, "Please, we need more reviews," and was trying to get them to smile and laugh and really to break the pattern, because like when I see a pop-up that says, "Hey, you want to rate it?" It's like, no, I don't. Like, it's like the same way that when I get an email saying, "Hey, help us out by doing this survey. It'll only take you 10 minutes." It's like, dude, I just bought something from you. Why would I want to take a survey? Right? So it's a lot of that kind of stuff is difficult, but I thought if we could just break the pattern a little bit and come up with like a little cartoon character just to say, how you're really helping us out and everything like that. And that seemed to work pretty well, actually. Hey, Eric, how's Google how long is Google taking to approve apps nowadays? I heard it was taking longer than usual. Well, the stuff that I've been doing, on the first submission, it takes longer, especially if you have a privacy policy, right? If you have a privacy policy, and that's, or you don't have a privacy policy, but like every time where it's taken like a week for me, it's been because and it gets rejected, not suspended or anything, but just like because the privacy policy is not good enough, right? So that's the only reasons that I've had those, and it gets to a remove state. But like I've done like updates, just like your typical bug fixes kind of things. They go through pretty quickly, just like within the day. That's been my experience. Okay, yes, you can now use AWS to access Mac OS instances on Mac Minis. Intel, though, not the new M1s. Oh, can you? So AWS to access Mac OS instances on Mac Minis. Ah. So is that like you set up I'll have to have a look at that. Is that like they have an EC2, like a EC2 instance of that? What is AWS? Amazon Web Services. Kotlin or Java? Kotlin just was made just because Sun is suing Apple over the use of Java. Eventually, Java and Android will be gone. By the way, Flutter is the correct answer. Yes. Yeah, I think, yeah. I mean, that's a really good point. I mean, if the reason Kotlin is there because of that, and if it is going to go away in the future and you're just starting out, it might be a good idea to learn that. But I wonder how, it seems like it's been going on a long time. Like it's almost like when I bought like my dream car a few years ago, the Mustang, I was kind of afraid that like, what if electric cars come in really quickly, and then I got this thing, but it wasn't an issue. Hi, Eric. How do you adjust your app or in-app purchase price? It's easy. You could just go in and do it through the Google Play console or through the App Store. The App Store, there's a drop down in different tiers, and Google Play, you just do that. Which is one of the reasons why you don't hard code the price inside like a form or something. Say, buy now for just $3.99, because or if you are going to do something like that and you're going to display the price, which is easier for your users to do it, then you query Google Play, whatever. I can't remember what it is. Like you query it so you can get the price. That way you could have it go up and down without having to redeploy a different application. Here's the headline. New, use Amazon EC2 Mac instances to build and test macOS. Ah, that's really good then. That's all. We were talking about this last week, like what kind of Mac you need to get. Not sure it's iOS, but yeah, AWS can now run macOS in the cloud. Yeah, cool. I'd have to have a look at that. I mean, I've got a Mac now. You know, I've already, too late for me. It's too late for me, but save yourselves. Hi, Eric. How do you adjust your price and app price to lower wage countries? Do you just convert it to their currency, or do you lower it? I just go through and I'll do like the whatever your local currency is, and then I'll do the auto generate whatever. But sometimes you can go through and tweak it on different countries. I tried it for India because I was getting a lot of downloads in India, but no purchases. So I went through and made it really cheap in India, but I didn't see more purchases due to that. You now use C# in the browser. I've been looking at that. I've been looking at Blazor, and it's not C# in the browser. It is WebAssembly. But yeah, you're coding in C# and it's converting it into JavaScript. But yes, you're right. Eric, you can get rid of the stress if you want to grow your company. You can't get rid of stress if you want to grow your company. You'll have to bring in more people at some point. Yeah, and it's finding the right people. That's the hard bit, right? But yeah, you're totally right. Thanks everybody for the thumbs up too, by the way. Smashing that like button. Thanks for smashing that like button. Savings will last 2 years if you spend 24 hours a day learning iOS development. Could I freelance before the money runs out? I do not want a job. Well, doing freelance is kind of a job, right? Because you're doing it for somebody else. But yeah, I mean, what I would do is I would see if you get a bit of freelance work while you're still working another job that's more stable. If you get somebody to pay you to do the work you need to do, because it's like, yeah, okay. We talked about this before. Like as a freelancer, you're a mercenary, right? So if you said I'm a mercenary and I used to be in the military, then that's like you have a certain amount of value. If you say I was a mercenary and I'm just learning on the job, like I'll go rough somebody up for you, even though I've never done it before, right? So I'm just gonna go in and just learn on the job, and hopefully that'll be fine, So what I mean by that is if you can find a job where someone will pay you like regularly, rather than you have to go out and say and drum up that business, right? You say, okay, I'm willing to learn what I have to learn. I need to do what I need to do. I do have some experience with iOS, but I'm still improving. Then you get that paycheck regardless. It could be a contract or it'd be a permanent employee thing. So at least you get that. You can still do the freelancer stuff at night, right? Whereas if you're just going out and finding the freelance, you're taking a big risk. You're jumping off the cliff before you might be ready. But you might be ready. But it's like I wouldn't advise it. I've done this. I have quit a perfectly good job to go do my own stuff and go contracting. And I tell you what, and I had a family, 2 kids at the time, and and a mortgage and all this kind of stuff. And for like a month, I had no revenue, I had no savings. It was like it paid off in the end, but I would not recommend that to anyone. It was very emotional. I was I'm nearly in tears like all the time. I thought Eric's goal was to be the very best, like no one ever was. That's right. I changed my goal. My goal is now I want to be the very best. Appybon. Oh, is that Pokemon? I gotta get them all. Gotta develop them all. Let's see. Sunit says, did you sign into the Small Business Apple program? How should we invest in the Apple with 15% commission cut as Apple suggests? I think that's across the board. I don't think it's just the small business. But no, I just got the normal developer program. I didn't know they had a small business one. I knew they have enterprise account, and then they have the standard one. So I just go with the standard one. But this was back in like 2012 when I set it up. So, aloha, Rizwan. How's it going? How about going to LinkedIn live to along with YouTube? This will go to your connects. I thought about that too because I've got the using Ecamm Live. I could for a while we were simultaneously streaming to Facebook. I thought about doing to LinkedIn, but you know what? I'm not a fan of LinkedIn. I use LinkedIn, but like it's a different audience, right? It's like I can't just talk to developers on LinkedIn. It'll be like, somebody will be here trying to sell us something. Like I'll be saying, oh, I'm having trouble with like whatever. I can say I'm having trouble with something, and they'll say, hey, you should get our new consultancy services or whatever, because everybody's like, there's just, I don't know if you guys ever see Joshua Fluke. He's like been out there for a while, but he always does this thing called corporate cringe, and he'll show like the LinkedIn stuff, and there's just like LinkedIn is useful. Use like Sales Navigator is a hugely cool tool to use when you're prospecting. But there's also like when I go in and look at my LinkedIn feed, like there's something because everybody wants something there. Like it's like, you're there because you want to find new clients. They're there because they want to find new clients. Everybody's kind of there because they want something. So every time somebody gives you like a comment on your post saying, hey, this was really cool, they've got some motive behind it, or they're just liking something, or they'll give you a thumbs up, and they're saying stuff like, it's also a lot of people who are like not cool trying to look cool, right? It's the nerdiest of social networks. It's just there's something about it I don't like, that I'm wearing my tie and saying like, and my profile, the profile will be like, I help small businesses to achieve their greatness or something like that, or everybody, and my whole thing with LinkedIn is like every time somebody gives me a LinkedIn connection, I accept it, right? I just like, yep. And then sometimes I'll get a phone call saying, hey, I'm from such and such. I go, yeah. And I go, oh yeah, we connected on LinkedIn like 2 weeks ago. I'm like, okay, right? Like 8,000 LinkedIn connections, right? It brings me closer to other people. If somebody needs something from me, they could find. That's how some people discover the Overpass is through LinkedIn. So it's useful in that way. But as a social network, I just think of like my contacts seeing this stuff. Like I don't think they would get it. I don't think they would understand. Like when we talk about app development or whatever, then they'll, it's just kind of a thing. So, but you're totally right. I suppose it could do. I have a point of sale software that is sell again and again and again. Oh, cool. Faster Blaster, good apps. Okay, it's a full-fledged POS software. POS does mean point of sale, right? It doesn't mean piece of like manages grocery, restaurants, and stuff. I've heard the term used in both places, so I'm not saying. Let's see, stock management, financial. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, whole 9 yards. I was so worried what I find on POS software in Google. I hope it's not one of my apps. Faster Blast says, is it okay to publish an app without a privacy policy and GDPR dialogue in the app? Eventually, the GDPR thing is like, you might be able to get away with it. The privacy policy, they probably would reject it. Like it depends on what you're asking for. If you have anything that tracks, if you have ads, I think even with ads, you have tracking in there. So you have to have something in there in the privacy policy just to say that you're doing it. And it's not hard to do a privacy policy. There's a lot of free privacy policy generators out there. So you'll probably be able to find one. That's what I did. So I just have like one privacy policy for all my apps. And so I just made like these generators out there will like say, what's your app name? And I'll put it in there and I'll just say Overpass apps applications to make it more generic for everybody. So let's see. Ashunga Walker says, can you pattern your app to keep others from copying them? I don't know. I think, again, this is one of those things where it's going to be really difficult if you have something like, look at Flappy Birds. Flappy Bird was a very simple idea, very simple application. And how many times has that thing been copied? It was copied like I had reskinning friends who, like, the day that Flappy Bird was removed from the App Store, he was doing 10 Flappy Bird clones a day, right? Because it was easy. Like, it was just, there was nothing complicated about actually doing it. So for me, Shungo, I have gone through, for me, it's like somebody copies the idea of the application, like when I had the Earspire one, that didn't bother me as much as when they copied the look and the feel and the description. And sometimes once or twice they copied the icon, right? Just copy the icon, right? Just my icon that I designed, put it on there. My description that I wrote, put it on there. My whatever. And they just, they've done all that kind of stuff. And that's when I get them, that's where I'll go into Google Play and get them removed. But it has to be like a blatant ripoff. And they're still out there, those blatant ripoffs, by the way. Building a virtual assistant, any API guys you would recommend to increase its abilities? God, there's loads. It depends on what I already have the news and the weather API. Let's see, you got news, weather. Yeah, I guess it depends on what the, like, when you talk about virtual assistant, would you buy things through it? When I think of something like a virtual assistant, I think of the Amazon Echo or the Google Home. They got all those things plugged into it, all these applications, but you could buy things from it. You can ask what time the buses run. You can ask what time when's the next flight to such and such. How much does it cost to fly somewhere? So there's all those travel APIs and stuff you could use too. See, do you have experience with the App Gallery and Huawei Store? I do not know, but some people here do, so they might be able to do it. So I really like the mercenary analogy. You nailed it. On LinkedIn, you can't leave your belt hanging loose as well. I know. That's it. I'd have to wear a suit. I'd have to be like, I'd have to use like phrases like ducks in a row. And, the most vital thing we should do is achieve synergy. The vital difference between Kotlin and Java, that's a very interesting question. We cannot mock that question at all. In some ways, they have their own synergy. In some ways, they will coalesce into a broad spectrum of different technologies. But ultimately, I believe, and I believe you'll agree with me, that blah, 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 blah. That's for LinkedIn. So, yeah, we can't just be ourselves on LinkedIn. We have to be like, we have to be, see, on LinkedIn is like, your post is awesome. Can you please hire me? It is. It totally is. And I know, because for a while I was doing those kind of things. And it was like, I had somebody tell me, you need to go in and look at a post, look at their profile, like something, go back to them and mention them later. It's almost like stalking. I had this lead list where I was like, just sort of like, hey, Jeff, I really like that post you did about, the new policy you have on whatever, right? Yeah, that was riveting. Or I really like that, right? I'm just gonna stroke your ego, and hopefully you'll notice that I'm here. And just there's something I just don't like about that. Because I was in that doing it, and I just felt sleazy the whole time in LinkedIn. And even now when I do go on it, I'm like, and I know some people, like, that's every day they're on LinkedIn and they swear by it, and that's their social media, that's their platform. They'll go in and say, I'm really crushing it at this job, and everyone say, hey, good for you. And there's like, notice me. No, you notice me. No, you notice me. Maybe you can hire me someday. But yeah, I totally get it. LinkedIn is not a social network; it's a professional network. Yeah, but they're treating it like a social network. They've got stories now on there, and they've got the live streams, and they've got they got LinkedIn stories. Why does LinkedIn need stories? I don't know. I'm just ranting on. Thanks for the thumbs up, though, everybody. Alexa or stuff like that. Yeah, I totally get it. Gotta make sure it didn't go off. Well, everybody, hey, that's the. What do you think of? What do you think about Flutter versus native code? I know we get this question all the time, but I still think Flutter is the way to go. If you're gonna do if you're going to do both platforms, you could do it in one place, right? And you have one code base, and you're able to test it faster. And you should test on both devices, on both platforms. But I mean, it works differently. There's a lot of, like, whenever I do have to go in and do stuff natively on two different platforms, it's never as straightforward. There's certain things where I've got on Android I got to deal with intents, and on Swift I got to deal with just whatever events. And and ultimately, if you do everything in something like Flutter, then you could have all of your logic in one place, and then occasionally dip down into the lower sides if you need to. So, but yes, Fizz007, pizza time already. That's right. I am driving. I got to drive for like an hour and a bit to go pick up my son from university, because everyone's coming home now. So, like, this our thing in England is. They're sending university students home early so they could test everybody. So I'm about to drive out to Cheltenham, and I'm going to have some nasty, greasy eat out someplace, and then drive back. So I've got about, I don't know, 4 hours of driving in front of me, about 3 or 4 hours of driving in front of me, and that's what I'm going to go do. But hey, thanks everybody for joining the live stream this week. I hope you have a fantastic week. I hope your apps do really well. We'll do this again next week, and we should do it again next week. We may or may not. But thanks for joining this time, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Have a good weekend. Bye.
Winterland, tell me all your secrets. Fill me in on your wildest moments. Colored trees, your